May I now take the privilege of requesting Mr. Mahfuz Anam, editor and publisher of the Daily Star, to deliver his speech on press freedom, propaganda, and state accountability in South Asia, lessons from India and Bangladesh.
Honorable chief guests, delegates from abroad, and young students of Bangladesh, former students of Dacca University who have done a magnificent job of organizing this conference. I have been given a specialized subject, but with the permission of the organizers, I would like to make it a little broader. I'm a proud freedom fighter from 1971. So in a sense, I'm old enough to have seen so much of history pass by. My view is that we as a people are great dreamers, but not so great builders. There's a lot of imagination, a lot of emotion, a lot of creativity in our mind. But there is a lack of practicality in our hands. A most sweeping comment about Bangladesh can be that we have dreamt a lot, but we failed to build substantially. The most important observation about Bangladesh that I have is that we have failed to build institutions. There's a famous book that I read, I forget the name, many years ago, that countries that build institutions are the only ones whose prosperity is sustained. The other models, yes, we may spur into a developmental sort of phase, but without institutions, those advances are not contained. They are not made substantive. So if you look at the topics that we are discussing today, politics, economy, and geopolitics, if we are to make a substantive presence in all of these areas, we need to build institutions. Let me start by the most massive failure of institution in Bangladesh, the parliament. We have had parliaments, but the majority party within the parliament, the politicians within the parliament distorted the constitution. They usurped the power of the majority party and took, democracy in directions which perhaps didn't institutionalize the freedom, the liberty that democracy enshrines. To make a journalistic comment, Bangladesh is very rich in politics. The politics in Bangladesh frees us. Frees means freeing us. But we turn politics into politicization. We use democracy to go to power. But the moment we go to power, we start subverting democracy. That, unfortunately, is the history of Bangladesh. So to the young who brought us this present opportunity, let me tell you that 1971 was perhaps the biggest opportunity that Bangladeshis had. It is fortunate for our generation that there was a new country. Can you imagine having a new country? It's not the system. We had a new country, our Sonar Bangla. Why did we fail to build our Sonar Bangla? We had driven away the foreigners. We have driven away the oppressive Pakistani army. We were ourselves. Yes, So that is the point. We need to learn why did we fail to build Bangladesh. In 1991, we had a second opportunity when a similar mass uprising removed a military-backed dictatorship. 91 is when the Daily Star, we started our journey. And I remember the first article that I wrote in the Daily Star was called Dreams Reborn. In 91, with the restoration of democracy, with the coming back of representative government, with the return of parliament by elected representatives of the people, we all felt dreams being reborn. In 2024, our dreams are reborn again. My own experience is that our people love democracy. Our people love freedom. Our people come together to demolish dictatorships. But once the dictatorship is demolished, our unity fragments, our vision diverts, our energy sometimes become competitive, so competitive that we fail to build the future. So there is no doubt that today we have an opportunity to build our future again. But the discussion that I see now as a journalist, I feel that it is more focused on dismantling the mistakes that we made rather than focusing on the way to build the future. There is a lack of discussion. In my view, we are tweaking with that, we are suggesting about new constitution as if it was the constitution's fault for the dictatorship that emerged. The fault was in our politics. The fault was in our political parties. Because the best institution, the best democratic structure you bring, the practitioners of democracy, if they don't believe in democracy, if the practitioners of democracy, which is enshrined in the form of political parties, if they do not absolutely internalize the values of tolerance, the values of negotiation, the values of working together, if we are obsessed with the idea of how do I get to the front seat, how do I capture power, and once I capture power, I want to perpetuate it. That, unfortunately, in my view, is the experience of last 53 years or 54 years of Bangladesh's independence. Focusing on the future, in my view, no planning of Bangladesh's future will be sustainable without taking into consideration the climate crisis that Bangladesh is going to face. It is most fundamental. It is going to affect our agriculture, our economy, our way of living, our cities, our farmlands. Every aspect of Bangladesh will be affected by the climate change, for which we are not responsible. We don't emit carbon like many, many other countries, but we are the victims. So therefore, I will urge the younger generation, and maybe the beginning has already been done. The whole concept of delta-based thinking will, as the Vice Chancellor of Dacca University mentioned, will change our perspective, will take more nature, population, vegetation, climate into our planning process. But please do not underestimate the challenge that Bangladesh faces in terms of climate crisis. And I very, very sadly see very little of discussion on climate. We have formed very useful commissions on election, on constitutional reform, on corruption, but I think we should have had a commission on pathways for the future. You know, As I started by saying that we are great dreamers, but not so good builders, that should be the change in our mindset. What do we need to do practically to institutionalize democracy? What do we need to do to build an economy which is egalitarian, which produces wealth but also distributes it in a humane manner? We need to find out practical ways of how do we build a foreign policy that takes into account the turmoil in the global sphere, the diminishing of democratic values, the rise of extremism. How do we build a country like Bangladesh? We may say we have a strategic grand positioning by itself. But how do we transform that grand strategic positioning through practical steps? We may have all the dreams, all the emotions, the right sort of attitude, but we need to know the nitty-gritty of how to build. This is my most substantive message to the younger generation, that if there is a failure of us, the older generation, the failure has been failure to build, not to dream. We had the most fantastic dreams in 1971. It was revived in 1991. But in its practical implementation is where we failed. So, as Professor Mushtaq said, that the younger generation now is the future. Yes, you are. But do not forget that you may have the energy, the spirit, and the dream, but you do not have the experience. It is in the combination of energy, spirit, and experience that our future lies. Thank you.